Okay, I have a connection. That's a good sign. Okay, let me make sure everything's working fully. Oh god, why the fuck does Twitch do autoplay? Okay. We're going here. Creator dashboard. Stream manager. Edit the stream. Where the fuck is that? Edit stream info. There we go. It's been too long. Paste that in there. And done. Oh, I should probably edit the tags. TTRPG. Game design. There we go. Cool. Alright, let's do audio check. There we go. Cool. Alright, let's do audio check. Nice. My nasally ass voice is here. There we go. Cool. Alright, let's do it. YouTube's behind as always. Alright. Now let me just pop out the chats. Bitrate looks good, so that's good to see. Alright, pop out that chat. Pop out that chat. Put that one there. Alright, both chats are up, stream's up. Looks like we're all good to go. Let me go ahead and add tabletop sim to this. We're gonna do a window capture. There we go. And then that's gonna go down here. And then we need to shrink this down a lot. I don't know how much we're actually going to use tabletop today, but I might as well get it set up while everything is working. Then we're just going to add our little auto enabler. So we'll do hide tabletop sim. And it's just going to be if what would this be? If window is focused, and we'll pick tabletop sim. Scene item visibility, hide, tabletop sim. Sorry guys, one moment. Okay, and then I'm gonna set this to toggle. Okay, so I think if I did this right, then I should be able to click here. It's not doing it. Fuck. Okay, hold on. Event scene switcher, hide TTS. There we go. Okay, so we'll rename this to show TTS. Okay, then we'll duplicate it to hide. And then if the scene visibility is, if it is visible and the window is not focused, then we need to hide it. Okay. Those are both enabled. So now if I click here, it should go away. We go here. Okay, and then if I go back to tabletop, nothing's happening. Awesome. Thank you. Yes. Okay, wait, hold on. I'm a programmer. This has got to be... One second. I got to be smarter than this. What am I missing? If the item visibility of tabletop sim is hidden, if not hidden. Oh, if is hidden. And this should be if not hidden. Oh, I fucked up the bools. Okay, now we close this. Now we have here. Okay, and let's go back into this because we have to be in here for this to work. There we go. Oh, we click tabletop sim, and then we go back to this. There we go. Okay, I got the bools inverted. Classic. All right, now we got that out of the way. How we doing, guys? It's been a while. It's been, what, 2 months? 3 months? Because it's August now, and I think the last time I streamed was in end of May or early June. Basically... since the last time I streamed, I had some really busy bad month or so, and it was a fucked month, a month and a half, something like that. And then I spent like half a month recovering from it. And then now that we're getting back into game design, one of the issues that I'm running into with the Vampire project is that I need a artist for it, and or someone who can code a really complicated graphics shader. So one option is for me to sit down for like 2 or 3 weeks and learn how to do the graphics shader, which I might end up actually doing. But I'm kind of low morale on it. So, and I kind of got inspired to do this other project, and so it's kind of on hiatus until I either figure that out or I sit down and power through it. So instead, we're working on this for a little bit. Let's go. Okay, so let me drop my volume a little bit. I have this idea for a tabletop RPG, which is what we're going to be working on tonight. And the general premise is, I just hate 5th edition. That's basically what it came down to. I kept thinking about 5th edition, and I kept getting annoyed by it. And so then I wanted to make a RPG system that fixes the issues I have with 5th edition. And so we are working on it. At this point, the project is an entirely different vibe from 5th edition. It's a bit more low fantasy, and we're doing some very different mechanics. But at its core, I guess what I would say is what I wanted from 5e, I think, was a mid to high powered fantasy that makes you like really viscerally engaged with the fantasy setting. And I think the issue that I have with it is that 5e is incredibly boring, and it holds you back too much in terms of your ability to engage with what it's doing. So I don't know how this is if this is actually gonna work out well, but we're basically gonna do the exact opposite. We're gonna go balls to the wall in this. So a really good example is the example I've been working so far with is the wizard, which is what started this all off. The wizard in 5th edition is one of probably the most pathetic, I think, flavor losses I've ever seen in a system. It's pretty bad. I think my general take is that if you want to play a wizard, the point of playing a wizard is to be like kind of like a know-it-all. Sometimes you want to be super smart and, you know, you just want to fucking intuit your way through everything. But I think most of the time it's like a knowledge thing. Like, you want to be that guy or that girl that fucking sits there and goes, holy shit, if I know how to cast Fireball and Fireball works here, that's epic. Or I know that this arcane symbol is this, and so because of that, I know that this spell works this way, and so if I combine this spell and this idea, then we can modify the spell to do this. Like, you want to be like you want to be a wizard who feels knowledgeable and feels in control of this arcane world, like a harnessing of unknowable energy in a way. And you don't necessarily have to be a scholar, but you have to want to, in some way, you want to control. I'm having a hard time explaining it. You want to be able to control. So, like, for example, for me, I really like meta magic, which is the ability to modify a spell in real time. I think that's sick as fuck. And I want, when I'm playing wizards, to be somebody who, like, understands the basal elements of what spells are doing and then can modify them in real time to affect things. And I haven't played 5th edition fully in a bit. I briefly touched 5th edition 6 months ago to a year ago, because someone wanted to run a Curse of Strahd campaign that I was in, but I was playing a rogue. I haven't touched Wizard 5th edition in a very long time. But if I recall correctly, there's only like 1 or 2 subclasses that get access to meta magic, and it's very, very limited. I feel like that should be kind of like a core pillar, and how much you want to engage with it depends on how much you want to prep for spells. So we haven't fully done the rules for Wizard yet, but I want a wizard to know, like, ideas, like know elements or know like aspects of the world, and then I want spells to directly interact with those and you be able to modify those better. So maybe you've got like a fireball spell written down in a scroll or in your grimoire, and then you look at it and you go, okay, well, fuck, this is a fire elemental, so I actually needed ice. Thank God I know ice, like, magic really well. Like, I understand the concept of water and ice properties, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute the fireball element, or the fire element in this fireball, for ice to create an ice ball. And so I'm going to do this, and, like, mid-combat, I'm going to take, like, a turn or two to fucking focus down, and, like, as I'm reading out the fireball spell to cast it, I'm going to substitute, like, the fire element for the ice element and, like, restructure the spell, and then I can cast it. And so the way that would work is that you would, like, have a skill that's like, I know ice, and then you would have somewhere have written down a fireball spell, and then you would roll some meta magic, like, in, like creativity roll to basically be like, oh, if I think about this hard enough, I can, like, work through this and spend some focus or some stamina or some action points or whatever in order to spend that effort to get that crossover. Or if you just want to be super knowledgeable and know, like, a million topics, then you can do that, and so then you have way more access or understanding of the spells that you're casting. Or if you just want to be, you know, Giga Chad, make high damage, and you have just, I have the will to cast everything at, like, the nth level, and you just know, like, 2 spells, Fireball and Prestidigitation, and you just, I cast big Fireball, boom, then you can do that as well. So yeah, I kind of feel like that's what should happen, or something along those lines. I'm getting sidetracked, but the point is that this game I'm currently setting up to be very feat heavy, classless, and most likely levelless. So essentially, you get XP for doing things, you spend the XP on feats, you build out your own character, and then the limitations I think I'm going to do is that each feat will have tags associated with it, like arcane casting or stealth or Eldritch Knight or whatever it is, and that basically your tags limit how much you can do so that you don't get to do, like, a bunch of nonsense. So you don't get to like cross-platform, like, oh, I'm a psychic, eldritch knight, warrior, vampire, arcane caster, and so I get this perfect weird combination of shit to do. The balance and limitation is going to be, I think, what tags you get access to. Okay, winding all the way back. Right now we're working on a damage system. I'm trying to catch you guys up because we have like 4 or 5 systems I have to explain to get us where we need to go to work on stuff. Map is currently hex based in 2-foot hex spaces, so it's much more small scale, but the main reason to do this is to allow weapons with varying lengths to feel useful. So instead of having 5-foot blocks, you have like kind of 2-foot blocks, and that allows like the dagger versus the longsword will feel different to fight with. And then also, I feel like it fixes the issue that you run into sometimes where someone will be like, I see this 5-foot square from 2 angles, and they're like, oh yeah, but I'm pressed up against the wall, you shouldn't be able to see me at all. Now if you're inside entirely within a 2-foot hex, that should hopefully fix that problem. Okay, next big thing, I'm making Constitution and similar like kind of defensive tanky stats give you stamina, not give you health. So there is a stamina system. I could explain why, but briefly, I feel like in RPGs that don't have stamina systems, but that try to act like you have a stamina system, they typically fail. Like, I feel like the thing that like 5e wants to do when they say you can only do this action once every short rest or once every long rest, the whole point is that it's supposed to be like an exhausting or taxing action, and for balancing they want to restrict your capacity to spam it, because you shouldn't be able to transform into a werewolf every like 10 seconds or whatever the action is. I think you can do that in 5e, but whatever the action would be, where you can't, and for balancing sake they want to restrict it in that regard. And so, but the issue is that I feel like if you're listening and you've played 5e, I feel like this has always happened to every player I've ever talked about, which is that you're in a fight with a boss, and the DM is trying to narrativize how the boss is fighting you and trying to make the combat feel spicy. And there will be some point in the combat where basically the enemy's health will drop, and because the enemy's health has dropped, now that's whenever the like to half for bloodied or whatever it is, then the DM will say something like, the vampire exhausted its chest, or vampire doesn't work because they don't breathe, the werewolf or the murderer exhausted their breath heaving like up and down as they jaggedly try to regain composure before they go in for the fight, blood dripping from their face, whatever. They're trying to narrativize a thing that isn't there in the game, and it makes it really awkward and kind of just like a throwaway boring line. But I feel like it's way more impactful if you have like an energy system or a stamina system, and you have to manage your energy or stamina, and then you get to go, the DM gets to look at the stamina and go, oh shit, you've actually like worn him down. You can see him getting more exhausted. You can see him getting sluggish. You're ready to go in for a kill more. Or in the inverse, he's barely even like drawn a breath. He's so careless into what's going on, and now you're the one that's exhausted, and you're the one that's slow and clunky. It makes it easier to narrativize, which I think is one of my biggest critiques of 5th edition, is that it puts too much work on the DM to narrativize through no mechanics to help them narrativize. So the goal is common things that I want to see in fantasy that I feel like aren't narrativized is like stamina. We'll say combat creativity, and it's like focusing on different things and kind of like perception stuff, and we'll get through all that at some point. But basically what I'm trying to get at is instead of having Constitution affect health, it affects stamina. And so then what affects health? And my idea is that health is basically static, and it's only affected by your race. So if you're a human versus dwarf versus elf versus dragonborn or whatever, that's going to affect your health, and almost nothing else will. I might add a few feats that let you be more tanky, but it's for the most part just going to be your race. I'm a bit torn on it. I thought about also making Constitution affect health, but I feel like it overloads that stat way too much. And I kind of like the idea of it affecting stamina more than anything, and it makes it feel less high fantasy and more lower fantasy, but I think the fact that you get the fact that your health doesn't scale makes what should scale feel more important. So like, one of the problems that I feel like happens in late 5th edition is that the action economy overwhelms most in-game bosses. Partially because the action economy in 5th edition is bad, but also partially because if you have a barbarian that takes half damage or whatever, and they run into a combat with a lich, the lich has to deal double the barbarian's health in damage, then they have to deal the fighter's health and damage, plus whatever the fighter can second wind, plus the potions that they have on hand, plus the damage for the wizard and the rogue, and they have to have the perception to deal with the rogue, and they have to have the anti-magic to fight the wizard. And so I feel like part of the issue, part of the reason that higher level 5th edition is so unbalanced is because of health scaling, because now the monsters have to just do more. If you make health static, then a higher level monster doesn't need to just constantly stack more damage. They just have to have better tools. And I feel like that's what makes it more interesting, is instead of going, oh, the enemy now has to clear a bigger health bar, it's, oh, the enemy now has to have tools to deal with this type of opportunity attack, or this type of taunt effect, or this type of counter spell, or this type of like sneak attack. And those are the things that a high level monster has to focus on, as opposed to damage and health numbers. And then inversely, you don't have to scale the monster health as much. I think you should, to make monsters feel scary, but it stops becoming a like attrition battle of, can I burn your health before you burn mine, and it becomes a tool battle and a bit more of a game, like an actual game, and like the making decisions and trying to counteract what your opponent's doing. So that's kind of my thesis. So low level, I feel like it's helpful because it keeps characters feel very grounded, and it makes the combats kind of intense. And then high level, you don't have to balance around having quadruple the health because you let them scale their, numbers up a bunch, or because of their level or whatever. And instead, you get to focus on more interesting mechanics or more punishing abilities. Now, instead of having like, I have to give you legendary resistances to deal with the bullshit, it's I can now give you these crazy tools that let you become just a menace on this battlefield. That's the hope, at least. That's kind of the philosophy I have going in. And so now we get to damage. So if we have each race having its own thing, then how do we do it? So one option was health points. Let me hop into Tabletop Sim. Let me spawn components, cards. I don't know what the fuck CardBot is. What is CardBot? I don't know what that is. Let's just grab a standard deck. Okay. If we have a deck, okay, let's imagine. I don't know why I started talking about a deck. One option is just to do health numbers, right? That's the one option. Humans get 20 health. Dwarves get 25 health. Elves get 18, 20, 22, whatever the number would be. And that's what you have to work with. And that is an option. my concern is twofold. One, I don't know if I really want to do... it's kind of boring. That's one route. Another route is that balancing the numbers becomes very, 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 very scary, and you have to do a lot of math to make sure that you don't fuck this up really hard. Because if, like, the difference between 7 and 8 it could be everything. And then you have to now provide damage upgrades, which I feel like doesn't fit the idea now, because now you have like long swords that are like +3 or whatever, and now they're like insta kill anything. They're like a fucking like Vorpal sword, like Shadow Death Blade, like edgy nonsense. And it's like, okay, well now every like long sword in the late game is like capable of one-shotting any human being. So then you can't let the weapons scale for damage at least. And then you end up in this weird spot where it's like, okay, the damage can't scale for the weapon, but now we have to like make gear good. And so now you have to introduce like a whole new system on top of it, which you might have to do anyways. But now that's like you're balancing for damage, and so you're still the same flat numbers, which is still just as boring. So I feel like I could do better. It works. It's a totally fine option, but I feel like there's something more interesting here. I started with, honestly, the Nemesis health bar. Which, if you've never played Nemesis, it's a god tier game, probably my favorite board game of all time. And in the Nemesis system, you can either take a light wound or a serious wound. We'll grab solo. One player. Cool. And I'll pick, I don't know, pilot. And then we'll confirm. Okay. So, like, on this board, your health is, these are your light wounds. You get 1, 2, and then a serious. And then your real health damage and serious wounds. And serious wounds are basically cards that describe a location that's hit, like body or hand. And it'll inflict a negative passive on you. So, oh, your body's been hit, you can only drop to 4 action cards. Or your hand's been hit, your items in your hand cost more to use or whatever. And then if you get light wounds, you'll stack them until eventually you hit 3, and then whenever you get 3, you get rid of it, and you get another serious wound. And then if you would ever gain a 4th serious is whenever you die. And then it has a really interesting thing, which is that you can dress a wound, which is that you flip the wound over, but it still contributes to your negative health. So if you drew a 4th one, you'd still die, but now you don't have to worry about the passive. And once you dress it, then at a later point, you could then actually get rid of it. And I really like this system. I think it's a really good way to explain hit locations without having to do a ton of work, and provides a lot of flavor for what's happening. The only issue I have with it for what I'm doing is that I think that's all of them. Yeah. Each race would have to have its own deck is one option. There's one caveat for what we're talking about. And then the other is, I don't know if I want it to be like a super small deck of like, oh, you hit hand, oh, you hit body. I kind of want it to be more, I don't like the idea of you drawing the hit wound, and that's what gets hit. I like the idea of there just being cards that have hit wounds on them. And so the idea became each race would have a set of hit locations, which allows you to vary it. So like if you have a Hydra, maybe you have extra hit locations, or if you're like a fucking snake, you don't have arms or whatever it is. And so each race has like a hit location set of cards, and then you would have a number associated with it. So we would go like here, we would go dice. We'll grab a d6. So maybe humans have like 5 in body, and so that's like the most damage that a body shot can take, while a hand might be like 2, and like a leg might be like, I don't know, 4 or whatever. And so as something takes damage, then it stacks up on it, and then it pops, whatever. And then once it takes enough damage, it inflicts some negative passive on you. That was kind of the idea. But I like this format. The difficulty that I have currently when doing this format is that I need a cross card health value. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't want you to have to always take out the hand and then the body and then the legs. Like, if you do enough to 1 or 2 locations, that should be it. At least for most enemies, right? Like, if you attack a goblin and you hit it in the hand, that's it. If you cut off a goblin's arm, the goblin should die. End of story. Move on. It bleeds out in like a turn or whatever. So I need some cross health thing. So then I had the idea of having a bleed number. Let's say that the bleed number is, we'll clone this again. Actually, I could go into objects, components, dice. Maybe do like a red die for bleed. I can set this to 5. So imagine like you have like 10 bleed. And so the idea is that, like, oh, I hit the hand for 2 damage, so the hand's broken, but it also inflicts 2 bleed, and so your bleed drops from 10 to 8. And that's where, that's how we track bleed, and then bleed is your big cross hit location damage. I feel like it works, but I feel like it could be more elegant, or at least it needs to have a cleaner play pattern, because it feels wrong to me right now. Partially because I think it's a bit too much, but it also has some really interesting side effects that I'm trying to figure out how to represent. So one of the interesting things, if we go to here, is that a weapon would basically, instead of having like just a raw damage number, it would have a condition that it inflicts and then a value associated with it. So let's say like a dagger has like bleed 2, and so you would you hit somebody's hand, you put like a bleed card on top of it with a number 2. Whoops, bleed with a number 2, and so now you lose 2 blood every turn from your hand, and that's like the bleed condition. Or you broke it because you like swung it with a mace, and so it's just it breaks quicker, and you can't use the hand as well. Or you burn it, and so the location becomes unusable, or it has poison, so the damage starts spreading throughout your body or whatever it is. There's effects that make it interesting. But the goal here, I think, is we're going to try to figure out tonight how to hone it down. I think at its core, I think the core things that I like about how I want to do damage is I want some concept of a hit location. I want weapons to have a condition they apply, like bleed or whatever. I want a cross hit location health mechanic. So if I cut off one limb or whatever, then that's lethal, or could be. And what else did I want to do? I want reduced to non-existent damage numbers. So if I could help it, not having an actual damage number on the weapon, or having a very, very small damage number. What I don't want is I don't have to look at this sheet I made for the weapons. And I don't want to look at damage and go, okay, well, I know that, you know, knives have damage 5, and this is damage 1, and then this is damage 3, and, like, I want it to be like, oh, this is, like, bleed 2, and so you have to think about the bleed factor. This is broken 3 or whatever. And then, if at all, even if there is a number, maybe it's just bleed or just broken, and then how well you hit would dictate the damage that you inflict, which I haven't got to yet, but I kind of like that idea. But yeah, I think these are the big things. Honestly, I almost want to just say fuck the reduced. I want no damage numbers on weapons. I kind of just want to see if I can hit that goal. And if I can't hit that goal, we can't hit that goal. But that's what I want to do. So my idea for getting around damage numbers is how Warhammer Fantasy does it. And so what Warhammer Fantasy says is you roll to hit, and then before you do that, your enemy will roll to respond, so they can roll to block or dodge, basically, is what you normally do. And so you'll roll off against each other, and then if your hit is higher than the defender, then you get what's called an opposed success level. So if you rolled like they do it in percentiles, so if you rolled like a success level 2 and your opponent rolled like a success level 1, then you would have an opposed success level of 1 because you beat them by 1, basically. And then in that game, there's like a raw damage number, and then you add your opposed success level to it, and that's how much damage you deal. But in this, I kind of like the idea of it only being the opposed success level. So if I hit you really hard because you didn't stop me enough, or if I hit you really softly because I didn't stop enough, that's what affects the condition thing. So if I wickedly slice you with like a 8 opposed success level, then I should deal a wicked fucking bleed. That's basically the idea. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to see if I can pull off. So my current idea for when rolling to hit is you declare you're going to roll to hit, and then basically, I don't want to talk about other mechanics right now, but if you're in a 1v1, then they can either say, oh, I'm going to try to sidestep it, or if they have a sword, then they could try to block it. That's what made the sword kind of the self-defense weapon, and so the bit is that it's going to be able to block things easier, because it's a lot harder to block with your hand, or with an axe, or with a mace, or whatever, than it would be a sword. And so basically, whenever you go to roll the hit, they're going to roll to resist it by whatever you would roll, dodge or whatever, and then if you manage to beat them, then you inflict that much or that strong of a hit, and then that is what deals your damage. And then there might be a second roll, which instead of having normally it's a to hit into a damage roll for most games, instead of that it would be a to hit into a break armor roll. So if I have like a weapon and I'm trying to pierce through your mail or your whatever, then that's where we do it. And so the idea is you would split basically your like a dodge armor class idea and your armor class idea and make those two different parts of the roll. Kind of like how like tabletop like miniatures games do this with like 40k or I think Infinity does it this way, where it's to hit and then it's, or Flames of War or whatever, where it's to hit and then it's to break armor. I kind of like that idea a bit more. It keeps it more conceptually clean, and it makes armor class not just like this one number that you have to beat. Because I feel like one of the reasons that damage doesn't feel fun. Here's a scenario. You go to hit somebody and you roll just enough to get past their armor class, and then you roll max damage and you do like way more than you do like 40 fucking damage or whatever. You destroy them. And then there's the inverse scenario where you roll super fucking well, like you crit them, and then you go to roll your double damage dice or your ×2 the dice value or whatever, and then you roll the damage and you roll like a 1, and now you dealt less damage than you did if you hit barely, just because of the roll of the damage value, and it sucks. And I feel like instead what we could do is we could say, how well did you hit, and then based on how well you hit, we see how well you penetrate the armor, and then that dictates the damage, and kind of make it more linked, and then makes the how well you hit feel better, basically. So that's kind of the idea. So I think right now I kind of just want to play with, let's play with some numbers. So let's say that we have, let's imagine we have 2 combatants and they both have a d6 to hit. That's their skill to attack. And then we'll say that they're both using swords so they can block. So we could either let them roll the exact skill level of the weapon on block, which seems a little high, or we could roll and kind of polarizing to where just have the better to hit forehead always, or we could do like the same skill at half so that you're more likely to guarantee it, like, oh, you're going to roll a d3 to block. Do d6 versus d3 versus to block. You could also maybe do one idea that I had was that you can resist it via strength. So in the universal actions, I made an action called Clash. And the whole idea with Clash was that you basically spend your turn to block an attack, and you just like slam your weapon up against theirs, and you try to see if you can stop it. And in one regard, I like it, and in another regard, I don't know if I want to make that the universal, because I'm just trying to think of all the weapons that I could possibly want to use this for. And I feel like if you have sword clashing with strength, sure, that's fine. I kind of like the idea of letting like the double dagger bit have a block. You know, the rogue that like clashes the 2 daggers like crossways, and then, you know, slams like the axe or whatever in between the notch. You know, does anyone know what I'm talking about? Where you like double dagger block. Let's see. Is there an image of this that I could? Blocking with 2 daggers. Something kind of like that, but it's more closer to like this kind of thing where you like scissor the weapon in between the knives. So I feel like that could kind of be fun. And then the question is, do we also make that strength? And I think that's also okay to be strength, but then you have the opposite thing of like, I have a rapier, and the goal of the rapier user isn't to like hard clash every time. Sometimes it's just to do like deflects, where you kind of like slide the blade to the side a little bit, and that's all you need to avoid the attack. Or you just like glance the attack enough to reduce it so that when it does hit, it's not nearly as lethal, right? Like you slow the attack in a way. You minimize its impact. And so part of me wants to say, instead of rolling strength to block, you roll the skill to block. So yeah, that's something to think about. We could experiment with. I think non-sword weapons should also be able to block, but maybe it's not as good. Because I kind of want to make... I want to make swords a good self-defense tool, but I don't want to make swords required for self-defense. Like, someone with an axe should be able to bat away the attack just as much as a sword user. So, yeah, I feel like making that universal would probably be good in some regard. And then you could have really cool stuff like a flail, like knocking the weapon away. So how do we test this? We could brute force the math a bit. We could take the attack, we could compare it to, you know, the attack against you versus the strength thing, and we could see whether or not we like it better for strength or attack. We could... Part of it is just going to be thinking through the implications of how the play pattern I want. I just want it to be a relatively simple rule that kind of unites the idea. Part of the fun and the challenge of working on this project so far is that TTRPGs, especially like more detailed ruled ones, try to cover such a wide basis of scenarios and factors and like conceptual like events, and then like try to hone them down into very simple, or as simple as possible, typically, rules that still hit all the beats that you want them to. And that's been really interesting to figure out what's relevant and what you should completely fucking forget about. Second, I accidentally tabbed out. Okay, there we go. Okay, I think we can just say this. I think we'll just say X is going to be... X is how well you hit. Bam. Okay. Yeah, let's do some math. What is that one site? Dice Calculator, I think is what it's called. Any dice. I think it was any dice. Yeah. Okay, so we want to output a D6 minus a... or I think it's D6. Let me look at their documentation. Dice. How do you get higher of two dice values? No, go back. The basics. Okay, and then I want sequences. No. Functions. That's multiple dice. 2d2 would give you like 2, 3, 4, which I think is what's here, and then arbitrary dice. Is that it? Oh no, I don't want that. Introspection, length, accessing. No. One second. I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. If I go this. I'll leave you miss. Alright, I'm back. So, let's see. Conditional blocks. Is it functions library? Ah, here's what it is. We want... I think it's highest number of dice. Yeah. Okay, so we want the highest one of 2d6. And then if we calculate that, what's the syntax? Oh, I need brackets. Okay. There we go. And then we'll do the same thing of output high. There it goes. Highest one of D6. How do we do D6 and D3? Or maybe do this, minus highest one of D3. How do we get -2? Oh, if they had rolled a 3 and you rolled a 1. Yep, that makes sense. And then the highest on your end could be 6 into 1, which would be 5. Okay, so this worked correctly. I think we could actually probably do D6 minus D3. I feel like it does the same thing. Yep. Okay. So what does this mean? If we did half the opposed value and they're of the same stat level, then it means that if we did a calculator, we'll do 100 minus 11.11 minus 16.67, or no, minus 5.56. That means that 83% of the time you will at least get 0. Now I don't know if I'd count 0 as a hit, so maybe we go up to 1, so we'd subtract another 16.67. That's 2/3 of the time you get a hit in if you let them at half the skill. Half the skill, okay. Okay, how about this? So I'm thinking through the play pattern. One of the things that's weird about it is that if I let... There's two worlds. One world is, let's imagine you're allowed to resist with the weapon skill, right? So I roll my weapon skill versus your weapon skill. And the problem with this is that weapon skill becomes the end-all, be-all, right? As long as my weapon skill higher than your weapon skill, the chances that I'm going to hit you are better. And that's it. That's all you just fucking stack that bad boy, because it also will calculate your damage, right? If you have higher that, you have better opposed level, which means you do more damage. The alternative is that you do, and on some regard I'm okay with that, because that is narratively kind of what happens, right? If I swing at you and you're really, really, really good with your weapon, then you can deflect my attack away, or you can reposition, or whatever. You are in some way preventing me from hitting you with your weapon, and that happens in basically all fiction. Then there's the flip side, which is strength, where you resist me by strength by just slamming your weapon into mine. And I feel like what's weird there is, if I'm playing like a very agile weapon, then I kind of should force you to nimbly block me, right? Because if you're just like full fucking flailing your axe to block my rapier should be, if I'm a skilled attacker, should be to get stabs in and stuff. So, but if you're swinging with a fucking big ass axe, then I should have to block you with a big ass axe. So, what if the skill you rolled to attack with the weapon is the skill you have to roll to resist the weapon? If it's a dex-based weapon attacking you, which is like a rapier or whatever, then you have to block at a dexterity. And if it's strength-based weapon attacking you, then you have to roll strength to clash it. That way we don't polarize around one stat. You have to either have both, depending on the circumstance. And it gives a bigger distinction and gap between what an axe is doing versus what like a dagger is doing. And will also give rogues opportunities to kill big boys, because big boys are probably not gonna have swords nearly as much as they're gonna have a big fuck off warhammer or a big axe that should not be able to block a dagger in nearly the same way. So I kind of like that idea, because that fixes the polarization issue, which is pretty big, where you only scale 1. It adds flavor. It's a simple rule to remember. Is there anything weird about this interaction? If I swing with an axe and you block with the dagger has to resist it. That's... If I have super high strength and happen to hold the dagger, then I should not do as well as a very high, very strong axe. The dagger should not be able to block that axe. Or it should be very difficult for it to. So maybe there's an issue there. And then on the flip side, if I swing with a really nimble dagger, if you have a very, very nimble if you have a very, very nimble user or dexterous user that's holding an axe, is the stat the determining problem here, or is it the weapon? Okay, so the stat needs to change depending on what stats you used to attack with. But whatever weapon you're holding should still be impactful for how easy it is to attack or to block that particular thing. So what it should be is you roll the skill of the attacking weapon And then there needs to be a stat the weapon has that can play into how hard it is to resist. So we have a durability stat, so you could use that for strength, right? If you clash, you roll your strength and the durability of the weapon, and you get like a my sword fucking shatters trying to block the axe moment. That works out. And then if it's the other way around and you swing dex into an axe, even if they have the same stat, the dagger should be harder to block. And so we could look at what weapon stat to dictate how hard it is to block that. Size? What was size supposed to indicate? Was that reach length? That might have been reach length. I don't know if I want that to be the case then. Strength requirements doesn't make sense. Size is honestly kind of the thing, right? Because it's the whole point is that it's small and it's trying to fucking shank you. Or it's like a rapier with a very thin point versus like an axe who's trying to fucking hit it. This is done. I want to cross hit, or it's not really done, but I think we know what we're going to do there. You want to cross hit location health mechanic. We haven't even got to that. I want weapons to the condition that apply like bleed. We're getting there. Then I want a concept of hit location. Okay, so we haven't even get to this point. Okay, so I feel like the thing that should make it's kind of the size. Now, what is this? I don't remember what this size stat it actually did when I first wrote this. Did I write this down somewhere? I might not have, and that might be annoying. I did not write this down. I think it's supposed to indicate range, but that doesn't quite make sense to me, because... Or no, the Warhammer I was thinking was like the small, like one-handed Warhammer. So that actually checks out in terms of reach compared to like a Zweihander. But I don't feel like Zweihander should have a size 2. I feel like Zweihanders would have a size 3. So that's kind of weird to me. And then I would want to split size and reach. So maybe that is just a generic size, because daggers are 0, warhammers are 1, and then swords are 2. But if I do it this way, where I do it based on size, then I would want... Would I want it to be based on... I don't think I want size. Well, would you want size to be modified by how you swing the weapon? Like if I slice you with a pole arm versus if I stab you with the point at the end, do I want the size of the block to change? Kind of. But I don't know if it's really relevant for wanting a size stat. Because it's size of attack versus size of weapon. And that doesn't make as much sense. Oh wait, these are the ranges. Min range and max range. They're just, I shortened them. Yeah. I would just want to see max R, I think. There we go. Yeah. That's what those are. Okay. So yeah. Yeah, there we go. There's a 6, there's an 8. Oh, bot joined the chat. That's cool. /ban distinctive. There. Okay. These should both be bleed as damage types. And that should be bruise. Although I might change bruise to, what did I write it over here? Break or broken? Alright, let's change this to break to keep the tense the same. Daggers are definitely bleed. Warhammer flathead is break. The other side is bleed. Well, no, because the spike head, the whole point is to fucking, like, use it to crack your arm in half or, like, pierce a rib. So maybe I still do name it break. Or maybe break and bleed. Because maybe the big weapons get multiple. That could be scary as fuck. Give like the flathead break and break versus break and bleed. This needs to be labeled traits. Okay. And then I kind of just want to delete these columns, I think. Delete columns. There we go. Much better. Okay. So I think, yeah, I like the idea of splitting it based on which weapon is attacking. We have that covered. The next part is what stat do we augment with the dex? And we said size. Let's imagine that we go with this. We have to adjust the numbers now, I think. Because the issue is that if we have size, right? So let's imagine that it's dex plus size. So in this case, it would be d6 plus, 1 or plus 0 versus d4 plus 1, right? If it's like a warrior that doesn't have very good dex and they're trying to block with a warhammer. Okay, that's the numbers that would pull out here. But then we'd have to compare that to when the warrior is attacking and they have like their d6, and then we add the strength of the weapon or the material value. So let's say it's like a, toughness 3 weapon or whatever. And then we would do the same thing for the rogue, but now it's like d4 plus 1. The math like is inverted to what we want, and the scale is totally different, and that could cause problems. Okay. I think the first thing is, I don't think it's a bad idea that the strength-based numbers are going to be higher. I think I'm okay with that. Like if material has a higher number value than size, I think that's fine, because strength-based weapons should deal more damage. And so if we can represent that by making the material property matter more so that it like shifts the damage up a little bit compared to how it would be with dex weapons as our modifier, I think that's good. I like that idea. And then the question becomes for maybe that's how we represent this. Maybe we do set this to bleed, and then we have like a feat or a rule that's like, oh, when you attack with a weapon and you have way more strength than's required, add an extra break damage to it or something. And that's how we inflict it. And then if you want to do like knives, it'd be like, oh, you stabbed, the dagger has a trait that like when you stab them in the head or chest or like a weak point, then you inflict an additional bleed at that location. And so that's how we modify damage for like crits or whatever. I kind of like that idea, actually. Okay. So yeah, the numbers need to be different for this. So what we would say is, oh, here's how we do this. That sounds way too confusing. I was gonna say we could write the rule. You take the difference between them and add this. So instead of it being d6 plus 0 versus d4 plus 1, it would just be d6 plus 1 because it has the difference versus just a flat d4. So, and then the alternate would be, this would be d6 plus 2 versus d4. But you'd have to explain that it's inverted when it's a dex weapon, and that's a little bit confusing. Like, take the size minus the other size, but backwards, versus take the strength minus the strength, and that's a bit much. It might work mathematically. So maybe if I figured out a way to explain it, it wouldn't be as awkward. I mean, yeah, I guess we could just say, oh yeah, this should be d6 plus 1 versus d4, and this should be d6 plus 2 versus d4. That would be like, we took the difference between them. And then you give the... But if this is inverted, like if this was a 3 and that was a 1, then it'd be d6 minus 2. And if this was a 1 and that was a 0, this would be d6 minus 1. Yeah, I guess we could write that. Okay, so let's imagine we have these are our attack values. So I roll a d6 plus 2, you roll a d6, d4, so we'll do d6 plus 2 minus d4, calculate. Okay, so these are our ranges. We have -1 to 7. Oh, and then we would have to subtract armor. That's what we'd have to do next. Okay, so let's imagine that for our armors, I don't think I've done anything for actually writing out the numbers of armor yet. Let's imagine that our armor is a flat 4. So we subtract 4 from it. Four would be really fucking tanky, actually. Four would actually be so ungodly tanky. And then we have the problem that you technically just subtracted 2. The way this is shaking out is that it would be the attack plus any bonuses minus the defense minus the armor, which in a way flattens the roll down to 1 roll, which isn't the worst thing. Or I guess it would be minus the other roll minus the armor, if armor's a flat number. So I don't hate it. I think the only thing I'd want to make sure you check is that, like, if the attack hits but doesn't break the armor, or doesn't pin the armor, I wonder if there should be, like, a min damage, where it's like you did something. But then on the flip side, I don't know if that's really what I'd want, because if you, like, manage to get the dagger to connect with a plate mail, you probably shouldn't do any damage if the plate mail blocks the entirety of the dagger's attack. Oh, do I give armor value two different numbers as well? Like a coverage value and like a durability value? Like if you swing a dagger at a breastplate, you're looking to get into the gaps. But if you swing a axe at a breastplate, you're just looking to fucking split the breastplate in half. So if you made that two different numbers, then you could do some funny memes of like coverage, like, oh, I have chainmail and chainmail fully covers me, but it's not that resistant against axes or whatever. I don't hate that. Okay. Let's do a quick re-inventory, because I feel like I'm getting sidetracked. I am getting sidetracked. We haven't even hit half this stuff yet. But it's related, so we have to do this. Okay. Swords are self-defense with decent offense. Bad against armor. Axes, oh, and they are dex-based. I think swords should be dex-based, because they're too, you're trying to hit specific points more often with a sword, as opposed to, I guess some of them times you are just wailing on them. But typically that's like, you're not doing much when that happens, because you're just kind of slamming into like their breastplate or whatever, or you're just hacking away. I guess you could specify. Oh. Maybe have it like, you can choose to just fucking slam it with an axe or a sword versus like hit a specific weak point. Or maybe that's what called shot is. Maybe some weapons have the option to be used in called shot, while like a dagger, you just go straight for the weak point. There's not ever even a point to do anything else. And then some weapons that are super heavy, like axes, or not like axes, I guess maybe like axes, or like big like like dwarven fucking hammers, you know, the massive fucking two-handed big boys. Maybe you just can't do a called shot on anything that's like smaller than like a large sized creature, just because there is like the weak points are just not as big or something. I don't know. Axes are heavy damage, bleed offense weapons. Good versus soft armor, strength based. Mauls, or we'll say maces, are heavy damage, break offensive weapons. Good versus hard armor, strength based. God, there we go. Oops, good. What am I missing? Swords, axes, maces. I haven't done a ton of them. Oh, daggers. Daggers, heavy, bleed damage, offense. Good versus no armor, dex based. feel like I'm kind of slotting in their use cases here. Then we have flails are area denial weapons. I haven't even figured out those yet. Good versus inflexible? Question mark. Dex based for sure. Well, yeah, it's a dex based. Yeah, no, that's just a dex based entirely. Pole arms. Pole arms, I feel like, has to be strength. Like, it's so much effort to fucking swing those around. Area denial. Good versus immobile. And good versus hard armor, probably. Strength based. Hard denial. There we go. Beautiful. Area denial. So if we did this, oh, whoops, I need to open that. Let me slide that over there. Yeah, maybe it is just one roll. You have an opposed check of some type. And then the armor. Okay. I think that this is... Let's go with this for now. Maybe it'll become a problem, but let's just we keep trying. Okay, so this is our formula. We take the skill plus an offset based on the particular property of the attack, minus the defensive skill, minus the armor. What are the problems that we have here? The problems we could have are... I think we just totally invalidated my block actions. That's one. Because the block action's whole point was that you would get to do an opposed check. But if we give the opposed check by default, then you have to have something else here. Clash, you state the combatant. When an attack made by the law combatant hits you, Roll an opposed strength roll with the locked-in weapon profile. If you win, the attack is prevented. So how would this still work? If you fail the block, then roll a strength check to prevent it on top of the armor? Like, that sounds wild. Maybe you gain advantage on block rolls this turn. Yeah, I think I like that, actually. Gaining some advantage to it guarantees that you're more likely to block it, which does basically all of... I mean, if we did this, but we did paste this, and then we replace this with highest one of 2d4, and then we calculated... This goes from, let me pull my calculator again. Let's see. In the original version, you had a 100 minus 12.5 minus 8.33 minus 4.17. So the original, you had a 25% chance to hit. And in this, you would now have a 15% chance, 14.5. So you'd lose 10% chance to deal damage. I mean, that's with you having a worse stat. Like, that's not bad for having a worse stat. Because if I up that to a... Let's say that the armor's a 2, just for the sake of argument, because 4 armor seems actually really fucking high. And we'll drop that from a 2d4 to a 2d6. Or we'll up it from a d4 to a d6. I think you have like a better skill blocking this. And we rerun this math. 13.89 plus 11.11 plus 8.33 plus 5.56 plus 2.78. You'd have a 41% chance to hit, which would then drop to a 25% chance to hit. So you'd lose 17... hold on. Oh, I missed the 0.46 at the end. So it would be a 25.5. So you'd lose 16.5% basically. Or about... Actually, no, I rounded up, so it's about 16%. You'd lose about 16%. I mean, that's a crazy drop. Is that worth a full turn action? It's noticeable. Is that good enough to dedicate a full turn to? I'm not sure. But it's worth at least considering. Okay. The more I think about this formula, the more it grows on me. Because you have that... Oh, Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I like this. Alright, this is what we do. This is how we do the roll. Okay. And let's go back to our weapons here. So I think what we do is we make swords dex or strength. They're versatile. And that's what we do here. That's what their edge is for blocking, is that you get to pick which one. That's the whole bit. Because axes aren't really, I mean, I guess you're already targeting a hit location. Getting more specific than that with an axe is not an easy feat. With a sword, that's way more reasonable. With daggers, it's basically what's much more reasonable. Yeah, no, I think I like this, actually. Because we don't have to give them, like, +1s to block or anything like that. We can just let them declare block as either, or maybe even declare attack. I'm not sure yet. But at least declare block as either dex or strength. That's what we do. So that way, against, like, axes, they're fucking holding up the blade to try to block it or whatever, and getting batted away. And if they're doing daggers, they're, like, trying to angle the fucking weapon to perfectly parry it or whatever. And then size will always punish them. So if it's like a really big sword, then it's still harder to dex block. And if it's a really strong weapon, it's harder to strength block, but at least you get the... Wait, I don't know what I'm saying. You were able to do it either way. Swords would have to be just better at doing this. So that I do have to do some type of math mod to the swords. Yeah, you were always able to block with strength or dex, depending upon who you're getting attacked by. So the sword needs to be able to be... The versatility has to come from something else there. But I do like the idea of it being versatile. I think that makes sense to me. And then we could have a called shot action, and the entire point of the called shot action is strength-based weapons attacking as if they were dex-based weapons. That's the whole bit. But you take a penalty to the roll or something. So that way you can aim for a creature's weak point. Well, no, because I guess you're already doing that, but you declare a hit location. So what would called shot actually be like? Would it just be roll as if it was a... Or must block as if it's a dex weapon, because you're aiming for like a specific thing? Ooh, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Okay. I think the point here is... Point is, I think I like this formula. This makes sense to me. It's relatively easy to understand when I write it down. Is there anything I'm missing? Actually, I don't... Okay. Let me mentally reset. I think I like this roll. How does this affect our actual hit locations? That's what we need to do. So if we go back to this, now what we have is I roll my specialty roll targeting your hand or whatever. And then you would deal damage. You'd put your bleed there, you know, deal 3 bleed damage or whatever based on how hard you hit. Oh look, the hand's fucked up. So now I can't use the hand, or... Maybe you just roll at like disadvantage when using that hand. I'm not sure. So that's fucked up. You then lose blood every turn, so you would start bleeding out. Okay. I think I still have the issue that the hit locations are requiring too much to hit multiple, I think. Because if I hit your hand and then I hit your head, that's a annoying amount of hits that I have to deal. Man, I like the hit location. I'm just worried that I'm fucking this up. It feels too clunky right now. That's the issue I'm running into. It feels too awkward. Where you're gonna put a blood thing on here and be like, oh, you suffered 3 bleeding. And then it's going to... You're like, okay, I dropped the bleed. And then I'm gonna bleed out over X turns, and then I'll die. And then you're like, okay, cool, I hit my hand or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Doesn't feel right. every way I think about it, it doesn't come out right. It's like, okay, maybe it is. Maybe I should just go health and just say fuck the whole hit location bit. Or maybe you don't assign a number to each location, but then it's like, okay, how do I lose the hand, or how do I break a hand, or whatever? I should have something that does that. And then what about the passives on it? Like, oh, the hand doesn't work, or maybe I remove passives from the locations. Maybe that's what I do. Maybe it's just the labeled location, which has a different armor number and a usefulness. So like if you lose your left arm, then, or you break your left arm, then you can't swing with it or whatever. But in some regards, I feel like having passives on the locations makes sense. That might just be too much. It might just be... Fuck. If I remove the passives, and I just make them a hit location, maybe they have like a backside passive, like the front side is just a number, and then the backside is like, oh, when I'm flipped, then do this thing, or whatever. So once you, like, if you play like if you swing in them like a mace and you break a bone, basically, right? Because you fully fulfilled, I've dealt my 5 fucking break damage and I'm shattering a rib. Flip the card over. Okay, the negative is and take 2 bleed on top of it. So it's like, oh yeah, you broke the rib and now there's like internal bleeding or something. Maybe you just double stack those, and that's like that's what the chest does when it breaks, or when you kind of do it that way. And I kind of want there to be like a table. Like, if you get the wind knocked out of you, then, you know, lose X stamina because you're like fucking gasping for air. But if you, you know, get internal bleeding, then, you know, fucking break X, you know, whatever. But I don't want there to be like a fucking table for each location. That's so fucking much. It's way too much. Oh, man. I do really want weapons to have a passive, though. I feel like it's way more flavorful. And how the numbers scale with how you get hit, that's so much better. So I do want the weapons to inflict a passive. So maybe I just remove the passives from... Maybe they have like a single ability like on damage. Like, oh, on broke or on you know, on shatter, whatever the keyword is for whenever it takes too much damage. Flip it and it's like, you know, drop your item or, you know, internal bleeding or whatever it is. And you just set those aside, maybe. Or the weapon could have that, like bleed says when you break it, you know, cut off the limb, or so realistically, unless you're swinging directly for an arm, heads and chest are what you should aim for 90% of the time anyways, right? Because that's like the most lethal spot to hit. Yeah, fuck. I don't know. I'm blinking. Every way I think about it, I'm just circling. Every time I... Is it just too much? I'm worried it's just too many rules. Fuck it. Let's see if we can do it. We have each hit location has a number and a when broken effect. And then you just... Or like yeah. Or I don't know what the word needs to be because it's not broken. When damaged. Maybe just name it damaged. Yeah, so then you'd have 5 hit locations. Each would have a number associated with it and a passive. Then you have the weapons, which just have a bleed effect or a broken effect or whatever. And maybe the damage type has a secondary thing if it like overshoots. Like if you deal double the damage location, then it fucking insta kills them if it hits the chest, or cuts the head off if it hits the head or whatever it is. Fuck. Okay. So let me make sure I have this mentally. Broken damage is there to target a specific point. You're just like, I'm going to fucking break your hand, or I'm just going to fucking wail on you. And you shatter that location, and that location incurs its penalty, and then it is fucked up. So if you broke the hand, they drop the weapon, they can't use the hand, and you beat them. Now that they've lost their sword or whatever, you beat them to death. And then that's like the mace's pattern, and it's brutal because you're fucking like wiping out locations one at a time. It doesn't take out blood necessarily because you're like breaking an arm, so there's not really as much bleeding as if you like fucking slice an artery or whatever, but there's still damage it's incurring. Versus and then if you hit like a center point, then you like, if you break the head, you should just die, I think, just straight up. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what else. I feel like the head should be super fragile. Like overkill damage shouldn't really matter for a head. But maybe heads have like a penalty to hitting them. I'm trying to think of why you wouldn't just always swing for the head then, because it's not going to have as much health as the torso. This is why cult shots typically take penalties. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. Whatever it is. And then bleed is there to, you have like a bleed value on your side that's like, I have 10 bleed or whatever, and the bleed is just there to stack and fucking wipe it out. You're just there to, you hit them like once or twice, and then you delay as much as you can as they fucking die. Maybe bleed weapons should get a reduction in how much damage they actually do, or maybe just up the bleed numbers. Because if like you're gonna crack at somebody for like 3 or 4, losing 3 blood a turn would get kind of brutal, unless you maybe have like 20 or something. But even then, like a vicious cut, I don't know if it's necessarily gonna bleed you out that quickly. we'll have to play with the balancing. And then, what was the other damage types? Burn was going to remove bleed for cauterizing. But I hadn't decided what its bad thing was going to be yet. And then poison was going to spread, but I hadn't fully worked out how that was going to spread yet. Fuck, this has got to be the most boring stream. It's just me sitting here questioning myself. There's got to be fucking something I can immediately go, aha, this is what I need. This is the fucked part about game design, okay? If you ever are like wondering, like, why does game design take so long? It's because there's a lot of motherfuckers who do shit like this, where they're just sitting there for hours fucking beating their head against the wall until one day they go, oh, wait, I could do it this way. I'm fucking stupid. I spent so long on this for no reason. Or at least that's how it is for me anytime I work on it. Fuck me. I'll stare at this and rethink about it and rethink about it and rethink about it, and then I'm gonna... Okay, let's break our loop, alright? Let's practice breaking the loop. We reevaluate principles and we work our way back down. So what we want to do is we want to take a hit location idea and we want to start from square one. There needs to be some way to hit a particular location with a mechanical benefit. I think I agree with this idea. Is there any reason I wouldn't? Let's go back another step to double check to make sure we're safe. You want to be able to have thematic moments based in rules where you can hit an important location, like clearing a zombie's head clean off, or cutting off, hitting a particular hand so they drop a weapon, breaking a leg so they can't run away. Okay, we want to have that kind of thematic moment. Great, let's work up now. So now we need to be able to target a location. Okay, great. Now we need to have rules for what happens when you hit a location. Sure. When you declare an attack, you declare the direction you're swinging to determine hit location. Makes sense to me. Then we get here. There needs to be an effect when the location becomes useless. Sure. And then we think each location should have a max durability to determine when it's useless, and an effect when it becomes useless. I think I agree with that. Should a location have something every time it takes damage that it inflicts? That feels like too much. But I also don't know if I want... Do I want it to be the case that only when you, make the hand useless do you drop the weapon? I don't know if I want to make it... You could make it random. Every time the hand takes damage, you roll the C, and it gets worse the more damage it's taken, and so then eventually it becomes impossible to not drop. Maybe... I don't like that too much. I think it should just be the on break point, drop the thing. Yeah, I think all that's correct. So since all that is correct, sorry, I zoned out thinking about how I would ever implement monks and them trying to block with their like hands and having like more durable hands in order to like actually block attacks with them. But sorry, that's a way sidetrack. I zoned out for a second. All right. Yeah, I think I agree with all those principles. So then the question just becomes, what's the most elegant way to do it? I think when a hand takes full damage, you should drop an item, and the hand should become unusable. I think that, and by unusable, I mean if an action would require you to use that hand and the action involved a roll, a skill roll, then you cannot do it. And the reason I'm making that exception is that I feel like if you break the hands, I feel like they should still be able to drink a health potion. That feels fair to me. Because otherwise you're going to end up in a situation where it's like, okay, cool, I broke both your hands, you just can't heal yourself now. Which might be maybe that becomes a valid play pattern. That feels a little scary. Maybe I'll allow it. I'll think about it. Let me write that down as a note. Can you use health potions while your hands are broke? Okay. So then if you break the legs, the issue is that the location should be crippled. Oh, that's the keyword. The location should be crippled when your hands are crippled. I don't want it to be... Oh, maybe that's what it is. Okay. Here's what it is. Let's say we have a number like 5 sitting on the chest. When the damage hits 5, then the location becomes crippled. If the damage hits double that to 10, then the secondary effect happens. So if let me clarify. If this is let's say hand, because I know the passive for hand. If hand's 5 break is drop your weapon, and then the hand becomes crippled because it's hit the value, then whenever you hit your first 5, you drop the weapon, and then the hand is now crippled. But if you deal an additional to double it, then the hand becomes like broken. And it's like, or it would be whatever the secondary effect is. So if it's like, if it's break double, if break is what triggers that doubled effect, then break the hand, it's actually truly unusable now. You cannot do anything with it. Or if it's bleed, you fucking cut the limb off. Like, the arm's gone now. Take bleed damage or something like that onto the take a bunch of bleed damage. Whatever it is. And basically there's like a doubled effect that's like when it gets super fucked. And then you just yeah, you do it that way. And then for enemies, the way that this doesn't become overwhelming as fuck to DM is that for
enemies that are like supposed to be more chaff-esque, you just lower their combat prowess. Because if their combat prowess is lower, then they're going to just take more damage, right? Or they're going to have worse gear. Maybe they don't have armor or something like that. And so the numbers just work out better, that you'll end up inflicting more damage, which means you don't have to track them as long because they'll automatically break their arm or automatically whatever. Ooh, fuck. That could be a fun passive. Let's go into the feats. Go into the next one that we want to add. You call it like hide the pain, and it's like have to pass a perception check to tell if location is crippled. Yeah, okay, that could be fun. Fuck. Yeah, I think that's correct. The more I think about it, the less the more the fears go away, because I'm deluding myself. No, yeah, I think if you do double the number, then that happens. And then, so like I'm trying to imagine if you fought if a party fights 6 goblins, right? As the GM, honestly, the cards might be too involved of a representation. Because if you had like a little box on your character sheet that was just head, and then you typed in bleed 3, maybe it's head, I don't know, 4, and it's bleed 3, break 2. Oh look, head's broken. That's the end of it. That's all you have to mentally do. So cards might honestly make it look too complicated. And then maybe you have a condition, on cripple. Something like that. Yeah, okay. That's super easy to represent, actually. Because this is all you'd be doing. And then you would just up the number down or get rid of the thing or whatever. Oh, actually, if you did another bleed, you should probably write it separately. So it's bleed 3, break 2, then bleed 2, or bleed 1. So that whenever you go to heal it, you have to remove a specific instance, maybe. Or maybe you don't have to remove a specific instance. I do like the idea of keeping them separate. So if this was on a card, then you just add another die with that value to it. I kind of like the idea of keeping it separate. because it represents like, oh, this wound has hit this hard. But if you go to heal it, like if you partially heal a cut through like magic bullshit, then the number should be reduced. And so in a way, it becomes like a bleed one and a bleed one, and so there's not really a point to keep them separate. And you could just, unless you had effects that are like remove the worst hit on your character sheet or whatever, or remove like the most critical or something like that. Okay. Yeah, I think I like this. Fuck, this stream has got to be so fucking boring. Holy fuck. Just me going silent for 2 minutes before saying something retarded. Okay. Alright, well, let's see. What did we figure out? We hit this, we do have a concept of hit location. You want weapons to apply a condition, yes. You want a cross-hit location health mechanic. Yeah, so I think that's bleed. I do kind of like the idea of every time you take damage, lose that much, like, mental stamina, like you break concentration. That way there's, irregardless of the damage, there is something being lost across the board. Because if you lose the stamina drain, it basically is like a guaranteed way to fucking start going down. Because if you, like, it doesn't matter how much you get healed, if you lose enough stamina, eventually you just become fucking useless. So if you're just sitting there getting fucking tanked, what you don't want is like a healer who gets to sit there for 1,000,000 years and just spam heal you, and then and then you're good to go. Like at some point you should either, the healer should run out of stamina because they're spam healing you, which should be a thing, but you also probably shouldn't be able to take spam healing without some physical punishment, unless you also found a way to restore that stamina. Do I want it to be physical or mental? I like the idea of it being in the mental, because it's like a fuck, I just got hurt, like, reaction in your head. So I think I would say mental. I kind of like the idea of that universal effect. And then I think I like how we decided how to do attacks. I kind of want to do, let's do a quick practice round. So we have Swordman McGee, who is rolling a d6 for his to swing. And then we have other Swordman McGee, who is rolling to block it. Damn. If it's higher, was that a full negation? I think it was. Oh. Why didn't I think of that? Maybe, maybe you have to spend stamina to block. I don't know why I didn't think of that before now. So, like, oh, I had to block 4, so I either spend, like, 4 or maybe, like, 2 stamina to block the attack, and I have to pass the roll. So the point is that you are, like, spending stamina to resist them, basically. And that way, even if you get blocked, you're still burning something that forces the combat to go down. So it's not just I swing, you block, you swing, I block, I swing, and you just do this infinitely. At some point, you hit like an actual attrition point. So there is the attrition of the stamina, which I think is valid, because I think it's better than attrition of health, because you're guaranteed to lose stamina while you're doing things. It'd be like if all of your actions, or if a lot of your actions cost health in most systems. That would, at some point, it would be it's a entirely different form of attrition than if successful, make you lose thing. And then on top of it, you have like a minor death spiral with taking actual damage. So when you succeed, instead of reducing stamina, you incur negative penalties on your tool set. So I hit your hand, you drop your weapon, it gets crippled, so it's less useful. You take a penalty to whatever the fuck you're doing with it. Or, oh, I stabbed you in the chest, now you're bleeding, so you're like going to die in X number of turns, and now I just have to hold off against you. Yeah, I think I like this. I think at the end of every turn, the lowest bleed thing should fix itself by 1. Or something along those lines. There should be some small anti-bleed. Because otherwise that shit could get out of hand real fucking quick. But I think if you get hit for like bleed 7, like the triangular number of 7 is, would that be 45, 51, 58? Like if you only have 20 blood in your system, it doesn't matter that you've only been hit by bleed 7. If you start subtracting it out, you're still gonna fucking die in a few turns. Or maybe you subtract all blood by 1. It still would be pretty brutal if you got, like, a bleed 7 is basically a death sentence, unless you find a way to heal it quick enough. I wonder how much blood I should balance around, because I don't want to be like, oh, everything has to be super fucking realistic because it has to be the most like realistic thing in order to make you feel visceral. I don't want to do that, but I am curious like the scale of things, because I think I looked it up the other day, and the average how much blood is in the human body. I think it was about 5. How many pints? How many pints of blood? Yeah, there's about 8 to 10 pints, or 8 to 12, so it's about 10 pints. So I went, oh, I have 10 pints. I don't want to do them in full pints units, so I'll do them in half pints, and so you have 20 points of blood, basically. But I'm curious how much blood you lose when you get, like, stabbed. How much blood do you lose when you get stabbed? The amount of blood lost from a stabbing depends entirely on the location, obviously. Depth and type of wound with no fixed amount that is lost in every stabbing. A person can lose enough blood to die very quickly from an arterial or venous bleed, potentially losing 40% of their blood volume in a matter of minutes. Losing 20% of one's blood volume leads to hemorrhagic shock, which is a life-threatening condition where the heart can't pump enough blood to the body. You can lose about 40% of what you have before you start risking death from blood loss. Maybe you just do, maybe I have like a half blood get knocked out or whatever because you're too much blood in your system. I don't know. This is the one complicated part about TTRPGs. Because it's narrativization, there's so much that you can do to like add, like you can add a single rule to represent something and it becomes an entirely different game just based on how you handle that one rule. And you could remove that rule and do an entirely different one. And I lost 180 milliliters in less than a minute. I don't know what that means. ML to pints. Did he say 180? 880. So almost basically 2 pints of blood. And you have 10? Okay. So we've hit that 1/5 marker basically. At the same time, I just thought I'd peed myself or something because I felt fluid splash all over my feet. I probably lost more than this because they only measured what was soaked into the bedding, not the rather large amount on the floors of my socks. It was very likely substantially more than 880 though. I was still bleeding when they took me to surgery and they didn't count that either. I spent 2 days drifting in and out of consciousness. It was the strangest thing. You feel so tired and incoherent, and I had awful dreams where I'd wake up feeling like I was still feeling like I was in the dream. I'd wake up, people would be on the foot of my bed, I'd pass out. Wake up, people have gone or moved before it was new people, I'd pass out. It was extremely disorientating. I also felt like I had no strength in my limbs, and because the NHS freaking sucked, they left me for 2 days to marinate my own congealing blood. I had to peel my sheets off myself. Ew. Hemoglobin is a measurement of the density of red blood cells in your actual blood. It's some approximation of what blood one has. A healthy adult is commonly between 10 to 14. For people acutely bleeding, it started recently, i.e. started recently and losing large quantities. You start to see physiological effects such as increased heart rate and weakness pretty early. Even donating 1 unit of blood, about 300 milliliters, can cause you to notice effects under activity. Extremely ballpark, but losing about 500 milliliters of blood will drop your hemoglobin by about 1. So 500 is about a pint. And you have about a 10. So actually this works out basically the same math. In patients at rest, we see sustained physiological changes even when resting, when hemoglobin goes down to 8-ish. So probably 1 to 2 liters of blood. Around 6 to 7, it's pretty serious cause for concern. Rarely do we see much below that as you get low when we are actively transfusing. However, I cared for one patient who refused transfusions and his hemoglobin got down to about 2 and was still alive. Part of this was facilitated by the fact that he was bleeding somewhat slowly, and so his body compensated some over time. Lastly, if they get treatment and a transfusion, you can come back from profound bleeding. If that happens, it's as much as a function of how much blood you lost, as well as how long your organs were without sufficient oxygen carrying capacity. TLDR, losing 4 liters of blood very rapidly, even if found and treated quickly, would have you close to death for the period before treatment. Losing less blood but with a longer time before treatment could have a similar effect. Or for something truly dramatic, losing lots of blood but slowly over a period of days could have you suspended in barely alive state for some time. Oh, God. Have 5 liters of blood, but it can have as much as 8. This is 5 liters. Think of 5-liter bottles of soda. The following effects will differ from first person. Smaller people have less blood and are more affected, and the opposite is true of bigger people. Also, healthy people will be less affected, but people with higher heart rates die faster. Doesn't run before being stabbed. Don't run before being stabbed. Losing half a liter of blood. About 10% total blood volume. Not actually that dangerous. A pulse is present, heart rate's normal, so is blood pressure, breathing is fine. They will live. Losing 1 liter of blood, 20% of total blood loss, still perfectly alert, full pulse present, heart rate elevated. It's gonna suck, but they won't die. Losing 1.5 liters, about 30%. Anxious and confusion due to blood loss. If they weren't anxious already, that's a fuck ton of blood. Pulse is weakening. Blood pressure definitely decreased by now. Respiratory rate 30 breaths per minute and increasing. They'll probably be okay, probably. 40%, very confused and lethargic, pulse is super weak, heart rate above 120. There's a good chance they will die at this point. It's a shit ton of blood. 50%, they're unconscious, okay. God, or Castiel. Why do I know that name, Castiel? That's from Supernatural? Okay, then I don't know that name. Because I never watched that far. Well, Scott or Castiel, some shit intervenes, they're gonna die. Any more blood and there's no fucking way they'll survive. Unless there's magic or some shit like that. Don't talk about someone losing 5 liters of blood and surviving. They literally have no blood left. Blood is kind of important. Not even shock will save you from that much blood loss. Love your blood because it loves you and keeps you alive. So if you lose, I've been trying to debate this, if you lose conscious at half blood, my question is, do I just cut the amount of blood narratively in half and say, when you get below this point, you're basically fucked? Like when you run out of this blood, you are unconscious until you regain more blood than this point. Yeah, maybe you just do the half and then say below this point you're fucked. Yeah, so if I kept it at 20 for the clean number, then yeah, maybe you make it 20, and then depending on the damage numbers, maybe you only inflict half blood, or you only lose half the amount of damage in blood every turn. Yeah, I think I like this idea. Okay. Let's make a new page here. And we're gonna say health. And then we're gonna go, okay, head, body, arm, legs. So we'll say head does, we'll put this here, name, and then we'll say max, and then we'll, actually no, we'll take this, put this over in miscellaneous. Cripple val, cripple condition, and so we'll say that's going to depend on the races, but we'll say head is I don't know, what would head be? Sorry, I'm zoning out again. It's getting late. I'm trying to figure out how to represent this data, and I'm having a hard time communicating. Okay, so cripple condition is going to be, I don't know, hold on. The drop item, cut, movement, rolls in half. Or no, movement rolls go down a tier. So like if it would be disadvantage, you get like ultra disadvantage or some shit, or if it's not, you just get disadvantage or whatever. And then headed body. I think body should be internal bleeding. I think that's what body should be. On cripple condition, inflict bleed X on self. Maybe bleed divided by 2. And then for a head should be lose consciousness. You just go out like a fucking light. Okay. And then for like a human, do I make the cripple value different than the blood value? Because like blood value, I'm thinking we set that to 20 and I walk away. But then like, do I put 20 health points into the limbs? I don't know if that's true. Maybe I should put more or less. I think I have to play with how the rolls are going to turn out. I think I have to make cover rating, and then we'll say resistance rating. And then location will be here. I'm going to keep the same words. Material, type, and traits. What is type? Oh, like soft versus hard. Do I want to do that anymore? Or I just want to make that cover versus... Maybe I do keep type. Alright, then we make this a table. How do we make this a table? I forget. We'll do like... What are like fantasy armors? What do we have? Let's go like 5e. Oh, what are the... Oh, hold on. That's a good... I'll click that link in a second. Okay, light armor is padded, that's just quilted layers, leather, and then studded leather. Okay, so it's riveted leather, sure. Then it's hide. Why would hide be medium over like studded leather? Then chain shirt, scale mail. Breastplate, half plate. Ring mail, chain mail, splint, and then full plate. Okay, so this game doesn't have hit locations, so I'm able to specify this more. I think padded works at every... We can just make a padded version for each, right? So we'll say padded cap. No, let's keep the keywords the same. I like doing that. Padded cap, and this is going to be padded shirt or jacket. We'll say jacket's better. Padded gloves. Padded pants. Sure. Okay. Easy. That makes sense to me. Cover rating will give... I don't know. Oh man, okay, wait, I can't do this. Because if I have a dagger... Oh, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be cover rating and resistance rating, and then type. because this is gonna be soft. And soft armor, you just fucking shunk right through that cloth, baby. But then like hard, you're gonna want to specifically target a weak point. Oh, and that could be your form of called shot. So even though non-strength weapons are still trying to fucking get that in on the covered weak point. So we'll say resistance rating is just a 1. And then cover rating we'll say is a 2. Like it'll cover everything. Maybe 3. Oh no, cap won't cover her. How do I make this into a table? Format. Convert to table. There we go. Name is going to be a text. That's going to be a number. That's going to be a number. Oh, it's cool. I can't click. It's fine. Location. This needs to be a drop down. Where I'm going to advanced op. Nope. Drop down from a range. We're going to select these. So it's H2:H. So that way if I add more, like tail, then that gets thrown in there as well. Do I allow multiple selections? No, I don't think I do. Oh, yeah, done. Okay, and now tail will be available. Yep. For all the animal creatures, the tabaxis or whatever. Okay. Armored tabaxi tail would actually be kind of sick. Like, imagine you get like a... Oh my god. There is a bobcat variety, which is like a fucking spike on the end of the tail. Wait, that would be so sick. Your tail counts as like a flail attack. Okay, so that's head, that's body, that's arm, and that's pants. Perfect. Then we're going to set the material. I need to make a materials column. Cloth, leather, wood, copper, iron. I kind of like... I was thinking about this whenever I was thinking about how the monsters would work. I kind of want to not ever add silver to this game. Or maybe I'll figure out how I'm going to do it. Because I don't like the fact that, like, when you walk up to a werewolf, if your first thought is, oh, forehead, I should just have silver. Which is fair to have. I feel like the issue becomes like, I feel like silver became the catch-all, like, pure metal for, like, real life versus religious connotations. And so I feel like the consequence of this is that, like, all the undead monsters, a lot of the fey monsters just hate silver. And it's like, I don't know if I want, like, a catch-all silver metal to be the metal. Or like, what's it in Witcher? Steel for men, silver for monsters, or silver for monsters, steel for men, or whatever it is. Like, I feel like I want some variety in terms of how that works. I do like the idea. I don't think, is Mithril copyrighted? Is Mithril copyrighted. No, Mithril is not copyrighted. Okay, we're gonna add Mithril to this. Cloth, leather. Iron, Mithril. Copper, iron, mithril. Obsidian is going to be one of them. I think there's going to be more, but that's good for now, I guess. So we'll go back into here. Where is it? Armors? Okay. We'll select material and we'll edit column type. Drop down. Drop down from range. Close this. Go to miscellaneous. Select a range. Bam. Bam. Done. Go back here. Select cloth. I don't know what the traits would be yet. I don't know if I have no idea what that's gonna look like. Okay, so covering your body, I feel like should be a cover rating should be oh man. Maybe the jacket also covers the arms. Oh, not this one. This one, yeah. Oh, and we'll tag this as a trait called glove. And glove can be worn with one additional jacket type. There. How do I want to do cover rating? Do I even really want to do cover rating? If you have a dagger and you want to attack someone wearing clothing, you just stab through that motherfucker. Technically, there's going to be weak points in it. Like, there's not going to be necessarily something around the collar because that's where they put the shirt on. And so if you aim for the neck, then it's going to be easier to fucking stab them because there's not an extra layer of cloth there. But oh man, but if we actually have if I want to roll against an armor, do I really want to roll? Do I really want to declare? That doesn't make sense. Unless the cover rating is a high number, that if you pass, you ignore the armor. Where it's like you basically, the armor is this much covering it, but if you manage to roll X or higher, then you hit a gap in it. And so that's what you have to hit on the OSL before you subtract the damage from it. Because if you pass that rating check on the OSL, then you ignore that armor. Yeah, I think that's what you do. Oh, I need to add a new column to this. We're gonna add a column to the left. We're gonna name this stamina reduction or stamina commitment. I don't know what word I'd do here. And this is just 1. For this one to say 0. Oh, and then there needs to be another column, which is speed reduction. Or no, it would be agility reduction. Maybe make 2? Agility / speed reduction? And then we're gonna make this a why did that just go away? Number, there we go. Okay. And then we'll make this, I don't know, there. And we'll make this, 0, 0, 0, 0. They're just thick clothing. You should be able to run through this fine. I need another trait for stacking layers of like cloth and mail than plate, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay. Okay. Padded pants. So the CR is what would need to be beat by the opposed roll. So let's relook at our any dice. Let's imagine that I have let's just do longsword be a longsword. We'll keep this super simple. That means that they're going to be the same size, so there's not going to be any bonuses. Get rid of those. And then let's imagine that they have the exact same stat, hypothetically. Okay, so we're going to get rid of that. And I don't really care about the bottom one because we're not really giving them advantage right now, but that's fine. So that means that your chances... Wait, is there a reset on this? Actually, there should be a way for me to pull up the calculator for you. Window capture.